Okay, let's dive into this. If you've been paying any attention at all to global music trends, you already know Afrobeats has just absolutely taken over. It's everywhere. But, with that kind of massive, sudden fame, it almost always brings out this shadow side of intense speculation. So today, we're doing an explainer on a really explosive piece of source material. It's a highly circulated YouTube video that makes a pretty wild claim that 15 of the biggest Afrobeat stars literally sold their souls for wealth and power. To figure this out, we're going to examine the specific visual symbols and lyrical evidence linked to these ritual allegations.
To understand exactly how these theories are built, we're basically setting up an evidence board. First, we'll decode the core conspiracies. Then uncover the hidden messages they claim are in the lyrics. Examine the visual symbols, map out the alleged rituals, and finally, look at what the source says is the ultimate price of fame.
All right, Section 1. Decoding Afrobeats conspiracies. The core claim.
So the absolutely crucial thing right off the bat is understanding the exact lens our source is looking through. Their central premise? It's that these artists didn't just, make it overnight because of raw talent or a catchy viral TikTok trend. Now, the creator of this video argues that this extreme, mind-boggling level of sudden wealth is literally only achieved through dark occult pacts. And here's the real kicker of their theory. They believe these artists are essentially forced by dark forces to leave a trail of clues, like actual intentional confessions just hiding in plain sight across all their art.
Moving right along to Section 2. Hidden messages in lyrics.
Let's look at Exhibit A on our evidence board and see how they build this case, starting with the lyrics. Back in his 2016 song Letter to Millie, Afrobeats pioneer Olamide raps, "I sold my soul to the game just to dine with the devil." Now, usually in hip-hop, we all know this is just a metaphor, right? It's about the grueling, sometimes totally predatory nature of the music industry. But the source doesn't see it that way at all. They frame this not as clever artistic wordplay, but as a literal, 100% unapologetic confession of signing a demonic pact.
And we see that exact same analytical approach applied to the rising Gen Z star Shalipopi. In an interview, he literally stated, "Music money was like ritual." So the source's analysis takes this provocative statement and says, hey, this is a thinly veiled admission of engaging in actual dark rituals to get sudden wealth. They completely throw out the idea that, hey, maybe it's just local slang for making money incredibly fast.
Well, the lyrical analysis goes even deeper into cultural terminology too. Take the word Oju. It was used in a massive hit song by the artist Oxlade. The source defines Oju as an African masquerade that actually represents occult practices. So following this theory, when Oxlade sings about Oju, or Omale asks Soso to take his pain away, or even when Shalipopi talks about Evian, they aren't just using cool cultural references. The source insists they are literally invoking deities and naming the exact dark forces they pay allegiance to.
And this brilliantly illustrates the source's whole methodology, especially when they look at Iristar's massive hit, Bloody Samaritan. Think about the traditional biblical meaning of a Samaritan. It's a kind-hearted savior, right? Well, the source asks a pretty creepy question. How exactly does a Samaritan become bloody? They argue the title is actually this sinister inversion, like a dark figure who pretends to do you a favor, but is actually taking your blood in exchange for your fame. Wild, right?
Okay, let's jump to Section 3. Visual symbols and occult imagery.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how the source systematically categorizes stage props and fashion as sinister symbols. They literally catalog all this stuff. For Rima, they point straight to an upside-down crucifix and a bloody bat prop. For Tiwa Savage, the absolute queen of Afrobeats, they flag a photo where she's supposedly making a pyramid hand sign. For the young artist Kaid, it's the repeated use of the number 444, which the source suspects is just 666 in disguise, right alongside vampire fangs. And for Ruger, his iconic eye patch? Yeah, that's interpreted as full allegiance to the one-eyed pyramid of the Illuminati.
Let's just isolate Rima for a second as a key study. So, during a performance, he literally rode this massive bat sculpture with a bloody eye. Now, Rima actually explained this himself. He was very clear that it was a cultural tribute to his descendants, his Edo ancestors. But the source? They completely reject that explanation. No, they claim the prop is a demonic representation of occult violence, and they constantly point to his music videos as proof of this overarching dark aesthetic.
The theory goes on to flag what we can basically call objects of power, along with these very specific ritualistic behaviors. Remember when legendary producer Don Jazzy returned from the US holding a dragon head walking stick? Well, to the source, that wasn't just a bold fashion statement. It was a literal staff of initiation. Or WizKid simply crossing his fingers? Boom! Immediate confirmation of Illuminati membership. Even Khalid conceptually falling into a fire in a music video, singing that he doesn't want to die. The source frames that as a literal cry for help from a soul-binding contract.
Which brings us to Section 4, Alleged Rituals and Affiliations.
So according to the source, breaking into the international market isn't just about dropping a great record, far from it. They claim it actually requires direct affiliation with specific U.S. superstars who they label as straight-up Illuminati gatekeepers. They connect Tem's explosive global rise directly to her proximity to Jay-Z and Beyoncé. Tiwa Savage, linked to Rihanna. Wizkid is tied to Drake, and D'banj is connected to Kanye West and P. Diddy. The whole narrative here is that these massive international collaborations aren't just regular music deals. They are initiations into a global occult network.
And honestly, here is where the source's claims turn incredibly dark and controversial. To validate their theory, they start pointing to real-life, absolutely devastating tragedies. The source takes the heartbreaking, accidental deaths of young children belonging to artists like D'banj and DeVito, as well as the tragic passing of young stars like Mobad, and frames them as transactional occult sacrifices. It is absolutely vital to note here that the source is using these profound, real-world personal griefs strictly as proof to fit their narrative, the idea that this level of fame demands a literal blood price.
Finally, Section 5, the price of fame.
When you really step back and look at the whole picture, you see a highly formulaic conspiracy theory. The source takes metaphors, cultural aesthetics, international networking, and real-life tragedies, and basically binds the whole thing together with this one supernatural thread. Which leaves us with a pretty fascinating final question. Does sudden, massive success always require a sinister explanation? Or is leaning into dark, provocative controversy simply the ultimate marketing tool in the modern music industry? Think about that the next time you stream one of these huge hits. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning what you see.